The air in the kitchen thickened, heavy with the scent of scorched coffee and something sharper, betrayal maybe, or the ghost of words we couldn't unsay. My wife, Lena, stood by the sink, her back to me, her shoulders rigid as if braced for a storm. "None of my 4 lips belong to you anymore," she said, her voice a blade, slicing through the morning's fragile quiet. I froze, my hand halfway to the mug on the counter, the words clawing into my chest like a sudden frost. "For lips?" The phrase was grotesque, intimate, a riddle that made my stomach churn. I wanted to laugh it off, to call it one of her cryptic jabs, but the way her fingers gripped the edge of the sink, white-knuckled, trembling, told me this was no joke. "Then live with your debts alone," I shot back, my voice cracking under the weight of my own confusion. "Debts?" I meant the mortgage, the car payments, the life we'd built brick by brick over 12 years. But as the words left my mouth, they felt hollow, like I was throwing stones at a shadow I couldn't see. Lena didn't turn around. The faucet dripped, each plink a heartbeat in the silence, and I stood there, rooted to the linoleum, waiting for her to explain, to take it back, to do anything but let that sentence fester. It had started weeks ago, though I hadn't seen it then. Small things, her phone face down on the table, the way she'd linger in the driveway after work, staring at nothing. I chalked it up to stress. Her job at the gallery was demanding, all late-night openings and clients who thought money bought charm. I'd rationalized the distance, told myself it was just a phase, that marriage was a pendulum swinging between closeness and space. But there were moments that snagged like thorns under skin. The faint musk of unfamiliar cologne on her scarf, the way she'd flinch when I touched her shoulder, as if my hand carried an accusation. Now, standing in that kitchen, her words echoed in my skull. "For lips." The phrase was deliberate, a taunt, and my mind raced to decode it. Was she confessing? Mocking me? Or was it something else entirely, a metaphor I was too dense to unravel? My heart thudded, a dull ache spreading through my ribs. I wanted to grab her, to demand answers, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead, I sank into a chair, the wood creaking under my weight, and stared at the coffee stains on the table, mapping them like constellations of my own stupidity. "Lena," I said, my voice softer now, almost pleading. "What the hell does that mean?" She turned then, her eyes glassy, not with tears but with something colder, resolve maybe, or defiance. Her lips, the ones I'd kissed 1,000 times, were pressed into a thin line, and for a moment I saw a stranger. "You don't get to ask that," she said, each word measured like she was laying out evidence in a trial. "You don't get to play the victim here." The accusation stung, a slap I hadn't seen coming. Victim? I'd spent years trying to be the good husband, working overtime at the firm, cooking dinner when she was late, ignoring the way her laughter had started to feel like a performance. But now her words twisted the narrative, painting me as the one at fault. Doubt crept in, slimy and insidious. Had I missed something? Was I the one who'd let her slip away? My mind flashed to the late nights I'd spent scrolling through case files while she sat alone in the living room, the TV's blue glow her only company. Guilt gnawed at me, but anger was louder, a roaring tide that drowned out reason. "Tell me," I said, leaning forward, my hands clenched into fists. "Who is it?" The question felt like spitting out glass, sharp and inevitable. Her eyes flickered just for a second, and I caught it, the tiniest crack in her armor. She didn't answer, just turned back to the sink, scrubbing a plate that was already clean. The rasp of the sponge was maddening, a sound that filled the room with her refusal to engage. I stood, the chair scraping against the floor, and crossed to her side. The kitchen felt smaller now, the walls closing in, the air thick with unspoken truths. I noticed the way her hair fell over her neck, exposing a faint mark. A bruise, maybe, or something worse. My breath caught, and I reached out, my fingers hovering an inch from her skin. "Lena," I whispered, my voice breaking. "What did you do?" She spun around, the plate slipping from her hands and shattering on the floor. Shards of porcelain skittered across the tiles, glinting like broken promises. "Don't touch me," she snapped, her voice raw, her eyes wild with something I couldn't name. Fear, guilt, or maybe both. "You don't know anything, Tom. You never did." The words were a gut punch, but it was the way she said my name, like it was a burden, that broke something in me. I stepped back, my hands raised, as if surrendering to an enemy I hadn't known I was fighting. The room spun, the edges blurring, and I saw flashes of our life together. Her smile at our wedding, the way she'd hum off-key while cooking, the late-night talks about dreams we'd never chased. Had it all been a lie? Or had I been too blind to see the cracks? I thought of her phone always locked now, the notification she'd swipe away before I could see. I thought of the gallery owner, Marcus, with his slick smile and 2 long handshakes. I'd dismissed him as a pretentious ass, but now my mind conjured images I couldn't shake. His hand on her waist, her laughter at his jokes, the 2 of them in some dimly lit corner of an art show. My stomach twisted, bile rising in my throat. "Is it Marcus?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her silence was louder than any confession. She bent down, picking up the broken plate, her movements mechanical, as if she could piece it back together. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her feel the chaos she'd unleashed in me. But instead I stood there, paralyzed by the weight of what was coming undone. The doorbell rang, a sharp chime that cut through the tension like a guillotine. Lena froze, her hands full of jagged porcelain, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, real visceral fear. "Don't answer it," she said, her voice low, urgent. But I was already moving, my feet carrying me to the door, driven by a need to know, to see the truth for myself. I opened the door, and there he was, Marcus, his coat dusted with rain, a bouquet of roses in his hand. But it wasn't his presence that stopped my heart. It was the woman standing behind him, her face pale, her eyes locked on mine. Sarah, my sister, who'd been Lena's best friend since college. The roses weren't for Lena. They were for Sarah. "Lena," Sarah called, her voice trembling as she pushed past Marcus. "We need to talk. Now." My wife appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of shock, the broken plate still in her hands. And in that moment I understood. For lips. Not just Lena's betrayal but Sarah's too. The debt wasn't just ours. It was theirs, a tangled web of secrets that had been unraveling for years. I stepped back, my chest heaving, as the truth crashed over me like a wave. Lena hadn't just betrayed me with Marcus. She'd betrayed me with Sarah, her best friend, my sister. The roses, the glances, the late nights. It all clicked, a puzzle I'd been too naive to solve. "You both," I said, my voice a hollow echo. "All this time." Lena dropped the plate again, the shards scattering like confetti at a funeral. Sarah reached for her, but Lena pulled away, her eyes darting between us, wild with panic. "Tom, I didn't mean," she started. But I was already turning, walking out into the rain, the cold biting into my skin. I didn't look back. The debt was theirs now, and I'd let them drown in it.